Hello and welcome back to the Faith and Formation Podcast, your home for devotional thought from a Bible verse every weekday. And today is Tuesday, March 17th, marching right along, pun intended, through the month of March. And today we are in I Thessalonians chapter 5. Again, I hope you have taken some time to read that chapter, at least for our teenagers. If you haven't, hey, put a pause on this podcast and go and read that for yourself and get something from it. And I'm sure it'll be a blessing to you. But today we are in chapter 5 of I Thessalonians, going right along through this book. And we've got one quick short verse for you here this morning. But before we get to that, let's look at our memory verse for the week. Romans chapter 6 and verse 22, it says there, "But now being made free from sin and become servants to God, ye have your fruit unto holiness, and the end everlasting life." Romans 6 verse 22. All right, speaking of verse 22, this verse for today is verse 22 of chapter 5. If you look there, very short verse, very straight to the point. It says there, "Abstain from all appearance of evil." This is pretty straightforward and understandable, and a verse that probably you've heard in a message at some point, probably multiple messages in church, but a very, very good one for us to live our lives by. Paul here is telling the Thessalonians, hey, abstain from those things that look evil, the appearance of evil. He's not even saying abstain from evil itself, right? No. He's saying abstain from all appearance of evil. So here, as we live throughout our lives, as these Christians live throughout their lives there in Thessalonica, he was saying, hey, you shouldn't really be concerned only with not doing wrong. Of course, you ought to be concerned with that, but also be concerned with not looking like you're part of that wrong, the appearance of evil, right? Well, this has several connotations. One, I'm thinking specifically even about teenagers. I don't want to look like I'm part of that crowd that is evil, right? So on the one hand, I don't want to look like I'm doing something that's evil, but also I don't want to look like I'm one of those that does evil regularly. Um, and this has to do with maybe some of the standards you have in your life. What are you allowing yourself to be around? What are you allowing yourself to look like, to sound like, right? The way that I walk and that I talk and that I look, all of these things give impressions, right? We talk about a first impression. If I was trying to give a good first impression at, I don't know, a job interview, I'm not going to wear my pajamas to go to the job interview, right? I mean, it just makes sense, right? And in the same way, I would put maybe something nicer on. I'd put a collar on, or depending on what job it was, maybe even a tie, as I'm going to for this interview. And the idea is that I'm trying to appear as if I am a little bit more professional. We're worried about that first impression, right? And the way that you live, the way that you look, you are giving an impression in your life as well. Um, Are you giving the impression of evil? What a great, great question to ask ourselves. Am I giving the impression of that? So, how do you dress? Do you dress to try and blend in with everyone else out there in the world? Is that how you try to dress? Or do you dress to stand out a little bit and to be easily recognized as Christian, as sanctified, as set apart? The appearance of good rather than the appearance of evil. Also, if there's anything that you're doing, like an actual action that appears to maybe be something wrong or evil, it's time to take that out. It's time to cut that out. It can be the appearance of evil. There's a story told of a pastor who was studying for messages close to a window. And this was many, many years ago. He'd have his Bible there. He's had maybe a concordance or something, a notebook, some paper, whatever it was, and a white pencil and any of the other study tools that he had with him. And this is how he studied. And he studied right there next to his big open window in his office there in the church. And he would study there for his messages and other things like that. Very normal, very simple, and that's what he would do. Well, he was preaching one Sunday or Wednesday or whatever it was on standards and taking care of your body, taking care of the temple of the Holy Ghost, right? And he's preaching against things that would hurt or harm that temple that God lives in, right? Like obviously alcohol and strong drink is spoken very strongly against in the scriptures, he's preaching against that. And he mentioned some other things like drug abuse and smoking and all these types of things. And he noticed when he started preaching about smoking that there was someone in the audience who kind of looked a little bit surprised or glared at him a little bit or didn't understand super well. And he noticed that. He marked that during the service that someone responded like that. And so then after the service, he went up to that person and said, "Hey, I noticed that you didn't like what I was saying. You didn't understand what I was saying, or was anything unclear, or what were your thoughts about me speaking on smoking?" And he said, "Well, I just didn't expect you to say something like that, seeing as you smoke yourself." And the pastor thought, "What? What in the world is he talking about? I don't, I don't smoke." Um, and of course, after thinking about it for a while, and after that man said, "Yeah, I've seen you in your office sitting there and smoking away, doing whatever kind of studying or it is that you do." He said, "So I'm just very surprised that you would mention against that when you do it yourself." And the pastor thought and thought and thought and thought. He couldn't think, "I don't smoke. What is he talking about?" And as he went back to his office and looked around, he realized that, of course, that white pencil, he had a habit of putting it in his mouth when he was thinking or holding it around his mouth. He said, "Oh, you know what? It probably appeared that I was smoking there in my office as I was studying." He thought, "You know what? This is an easy fix. I'll get a different kind of pencil. I won't use a white pencil," right? He said, "I'm going to change that so I don't have the appearance of evil." And that ought to be the way that we live our lives as well. Anything that we do that could be perceived as evil or give a bad testimony of ourselves and God and our church ought to be avoided, abstained from all appearance of evil. It may not even be evil, by the way. If you're doing evil, it appears as evil as well. Even if you're doing something evil and you're like, "Oh, people aren't noticing," obviously that is that's wrong, right? We should stay from that. But even if there are things we're doing that, "Oh, this might appear evil. It appears that I'm hiding something. It appears that I fit in with the wrong crowd. It appears," and you fill in the blank. Whatever that is, let's abstain from that or turn away from it or quit whatever that is, right? And in that way we can obey this Bible verse. So today, as you go throughout your day, think about those things that you're doing and try to abstain from those appearances of evil. All right. Well, as you go to prayer this morning, spend a little extra time praying for your missionaries today. Hopefully, you have some prayer cards or what have you for your missionaries, and you can spend a little time praying for them, lifting them up specifically in prayer with their different prayer requests and their needs they have there on their field. And then we're going to pray specifically for our teenagers for grace this morning. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us here this morning. A nice quick one for you. I hope that that was a blessing there from First Thessalonians chapter 5. Again, if you haven't read it, go read the chapter, get something out of it for yourself. Thanks again to all of you who joined us here this morning. I hope that was a blessing to you, and we'll see you next time.